Play.
I cannot hear you. I don't know if that's...
I need to unmute myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you can all imagine what I was saying. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and all the rest of it. Damian, you've had a haircut.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, I'm very good at noticing those things. Other things I'm pretty good at noticing is tennis results. And I'm aware that there are 4 winners this week from the upper echelons, at least, of the sport. And some may be surprising, some less so. I'll just begin by introducing those 4 winners in a way, and then I'll come to you, Damian, probably to expand on Rotterdam first of all. I know Brian is going to join us. But listen, what have we had go on in the last 7 days? Well, Daniil Medvedev has won his first tournament, I believe, in about 6 months in Rotterdam, the ATP 500 there, beating Jannik Sinner in 3 sets. We've also had Iga Swaitek demolishing just about everybody in Doha to win her first title of the year. And there were other titles for Taylor Fritz, perhaps a little bit less surprisingly, at least in the manner that he did it, beating Kecmanovic in the final there. And I'm missing one. Oh, of course, Carlos Alcaraz returning to not just the tour, but also to form. Let's begin with Daniil Medvedev, Damian. I'm surprised. Are you?
To an extent, we still have to see, because as you said, I mean, he won Vienna last year, right? And then it didn't really seem to revive him. He after Vienna, I think he lost to de Minaur in Paris, and then, which of course was probably related to fatigue, but then also, of course, didn't go out of groups at the ATP finals. All matches were super close, but you could still see that there are some confidence issues. So I don't know if it's enough. He beat a very strong set of opponents for sure, but then again, Auger-Aliassime, Dimitrov, these guys always struggled against him. Sinner is now 0-5 against him, which is pretty crazy. But then again, a lot of their matches were close. Here it kind of seemed like maybe maybe the run from Montpellier, maybe just the amount of tennis that Sinner has had recently, along with the tight first set, kind of had him out of energy in the latter two. So I don't know if that means that Daniil Medvedev is back. It's definitely a good sign, of course, for him after that Sebastian Korda loss at the Australian Open, which again is no shame, but the way that the manner in which he lost to Korda was pretty terrifying from his perspective, from the perspective of his fans. Whether this goes on. In Vienna, we also kind of thought, especially together with Nur-Sultan, right? Or Astana, or whatever the city is called right now, because they change it after every few months. But in that Kazakhstan event, when he played Djokovic in the semis, of course, had an injury and had to retire after the second set. But that, together with Vienna, that was sort of our, we were thinking that he's back now. It wasn't really the case. So, we still have to see what's going to happen later. Of course, he's in Doha. Rotterdam, although it has to be said that in the past, it didn't really, the conditions didn't really suit him. There was, I think the last 2 times he played Rotterdam, he actually lost to Lajovic and Pospisil in the first matches he played. Usually was kind of too slow for him. So, in that sense as well, it's a very good sign. But yeah, the clean wins over Dimitrov, Auger-Aliassime, I think it's just more of they tell us more about how much these guys hate playing Daniil Medvedev.
Yeah, I guess I was. Hi, Brian. By the way, we'll come to you with some sort of Daniil Medvedev thoughts, but also we'll go into a deeper thoughts from you on Delray Beach shortly. How are you doing, Brian? By the way,
I'm doing great. How are you, gentlemen?
Not bad, not bad. It's pretty early in the morning for you. Well, just gone 9 o'clock, but I know you've been up super early because I got a message from you at about 6:45 a.m. I think your time. So I know you've been out and about, but you are a family man, so I know there's no lounging around on a Monday morning for you. No. Brian, what are your thoughts on Medvedev generally? Because I think most of us have been pressing the panic button for the last 12 months.
I love him. He's my favorite male player. So let's start with that. So I've been very, what's the right word to use? Disappointed is not the right word because he's still ranked really high. But I'll tell you this. I've been arguing with people on social media. Everyone's like, Medvedev lost his edge ever since the AO final collapse against Nadal. My argument to that is no. I think he's lost his edge. I 100% agree with that. I think it's the birth of his daughter. Okay. That changes a man. That changes your life. That changes your edge. That may take a little bit of fire out of your belly. And I think I saw that over the last 9 to 10 months with Medvedev. You know, we saw that arrogant cockiness that got him through a lot of matches, intimidated his opponents, got the crowd either on his side or against him. I think he likes both. I think he likes being the villain and the hero on the court back in 2020, 2021. Didn't see that much in 22. Everything stacked against him against Sinner. Sinner looked good early on. I watched that match. I bet on Medvedev. Good result there. Very happy to see him win this tournament. I think this hopefully could be the stepping stone. But of course, you know, we're going to, you know, eventually going to get into the heart of the spring after Indian Wells in Miami. Then it's going to get a little murky on the clay. But hopefully Medi can take this. And I'd love to see him win either in Miami or out west at Indian Wells.
I still think there are bigger tests to come. But on a positive note, Damian, in comparison to, you mentioned the title in Vienna. I also think you're right. I think his performance against Djokovic at the same time of the year was a mini win for Medvedev in terms of the perspective. But on a slightly more positive note, also regarding this title, it's an ATP 500, therefore no different to Vienna. But the run to that.
Is the microphone out or?
John's mic is out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost it.
Good.
We can hear you again.
For some reason, it just zoned out. But listen, the two 500 titles for me that he's won in Vienna and Rotterdam are pretty different, at least in terms of the opponents that he skittled over on the way. I mean, Shapovalov was his win in the final in the 500. I know he beat a fairly sort of rusty-looking Dominic Thiem en route to that title. But my views in that I kept thinking he was going to lose here. I kept thinking when he played Felix, I thought he's going to come unstuck. I actually thought, especially having lost the first set, I thought he would lose to Sinner, having lost that first set. And I wasn't sure. I know you mentioned the good record he had. So that's the positive. But if Daniil Medvedev is back, I think we need to wait until we see. It's basically he's got to win a slam at some point the rest of his career before we say, yes, he's back. You know, I remember when Nadal and Djokovic have been through their sticky spells in 2015 to 2018. The two players had their respective sticky spells, and they would do okay, and they would stay in the top 10 because of certain results. But it wasn't until we saw a slam run from Djokovic at Wimbledon in 2018, Nadal getting to the final of Australia 2017, that we were like, okay, I think their troubles are gone. Until we see that, I think we can't say the same for Medvedev. Any other thoughts on this tournament, Damian?
Medvedev, Rotterdam, or
Medvedev, Rotterdam, or Rotterdam in general?
You know, I kind of have to, I guess, mention the semifinal run of Talon Griekspoor, who certainly looks like a guy who will break, I don't know, the top 30 this year or something like that. There's basically not that much to defend for him, you know, after this point. He is only defending one challenger title in July, and then also a couple of main tour quarterfinals, which kind of tells you how in 2022 he failed to adapt to the biggest stages. Looks like he's doing it now, and although I think he has a pretty tough draw in the opening round next week, but yeah, still with the sort of explosive game that he's been showing, and yeah, the fact that he's just not defending that much, and he was very close to Sinner. He just couldn't really touch him on serve. So that was pretty fun, and of course Sinner, you know, still being one of the I don't know, top 5 players in the world indoors probably. But just came up short in the final. So that was also one of the stories of it. He is going to play one more indoor event before Indian Wells Miami, of course.
Brian, what do we think about Sinner? Because, as I say, 45 minutes into that match, lots of positivity was being spread, including by me, I think, on Twitter. But then suddenly the clouds re-emerge at the end, and it's like, I'm not sure if he's got the game to go to the absolute top. Where do you stand on Jannik?
I don't think he's a top 5 player. People love the guy. I'm not a Sinner guy. I don't think he is an elite top 5, top 6 player. There is a mental block there for Sinner. He had every opportunity to, what was it, 5-1 in the first set? Still won the first set, but didn't he have him on the ropes at 5? Let's say 5-2. Had to be 5-2, right? I mean, you got to finish these guys. You can't waste energy. You can't get this back to 7-5. I feel like if Sinner could have cruised to a 6-2 or 6-3 first set win, that changes the dynamic of the whole match moving forward. I mean, Sinner is an incredible player. He's an elite, top 15 player for years to come. Now, I think if Nadal and Djokovic exit the party 2 years from now, then that's going to open up the doors for everybody. Maybe Sinner takes advantage of it. I have to be honest with you. I was impressed with the Tsitsipas result. That was good for him. He finally broke through after that heartbreaking loss down under. But yeah, I mean, listen, when you're making a finals of a 500, that was a good 500. I mean, that was a very, very good tournament. And Sinner's path, not the hardest path, but that wasn't easy to advance through Stefanos in the quarterfinals. I would say the theme for that would be lost opportunity against Medvedev. That would have been a huge win there. And then I would say major lost opportunity. This is a random name for you, Su Won Kwan. I mean, he should have beat Zverev. I mean, that first game was a horrific serving game. And then from there, Zverev didn't even want to be there. I mean, you could just tell the body language was horrific most of the time. I was just disappointed. Like, I know Zverev doesn't like that venue. There's no secret around that. But I felt like Zverev could have made a little bit more of a run in this tournament. Would have loved to see it. But those are the two things that really stand out was Zverev's, body language throughout the whole first match against Kwan, second round where he lost. And then Sinner, again, you can't give up those opportunities. You should have beaten Medvedev 6-2 or 6-3, and you probably could have cruised to a second set win.
Interesting, yeah. Any other final thoughts on Rotterdam? Any other highlights or lowlights, Damian?
Yeah, you kind of surprised me. I remember we both picked Rune, I think, to win this when we talked about it last week. Of course, he was injured against Brouwer, but it was still a pretty good run for the Dutchman, who actually puts himself in contention for a top 100 spot at least until his quarterfinal Houston points drop. He played for the top 100 against Talon Griekspoor in that all Dutch wildcard quarterfinal. So this is certainly something that I will remember. In regards to Sinner, I think he's just a top 5 player indoors, but otherwise not so much. And he would really love an indoor slam, but of course that's not really going to happen. And it's not like he's done well at the biggest ATP 1000 and the only ATP 1000 indoors in Paris, where I think he's yet to win a match actually. So.
Okay. Let's move on to Razor's favorite tournament of the year, and I know you were there just a few days ago. Tell us about Delray Beach, Brian, but also let's begin with a certain world number 784, Matija Pekotic, and his incredible win against Jack Sock, Brian.
Well, the perfect storm, right? I mean, if you're going to play anybody and pull off an upset, you're going to want to play Jack Sock, because it sucks. It sucks because he's such a great doubles player, and what he did at Laver Cup was miraculous. Whenever that was 5-6 months ago. But this guy has the worst body language, and he doesn't care. He only cares out there when he's the underdog and he has something to prove, especially against Americans, right? Like when he played Fritz in Dallas, that first set, that was some good tennis by Jack Sock. Now coached by a buddy of mine, Nick Monroe, played at UNC when I played at NC State. That was a pathetic second and third set performance by Sock. Good for this story to emerge. Everybody talked about it while I was there in Delray. I didn't see it in Delray because I was still in North Carolina. I flew out the day after they played. But it's a wonderful story. It's something out of a movie, but what can you do now with it? I hope there's some more opportunities for him moving forward, but perfect storm. That's the guy you want to play. Jack Sock. You break him once. I mean, he was done. You could clearly tell he wanted to check out. He wanted to pick up his paycheck. He wanted to get a great meal on Atlantic Avenue and head back to Charlotte, North Carolina, because that is exactly what I saw on TV.
All right, and tell us what else you were up to before we get into some of the other matches in Delray Beach and Taylor Fritz obviously going on to win the title. Tell us a bit about what you were up to there.
Yeah, so I hosted a Florida Tennis Legends reunion, which is hosted in Delray Beach the last 3 years, where the tournament directors, Adam and Ivan Barron, who are good friends of mine, they played Florida tennis as well growing up in the 80s and 90s. And we had a really nice event of about 20-25 people that, played very competitive tennis out of the state of Florida. It's funny because we're playing match play, we're playing tiebreakers, we're playing doing a lot of different drills. A group of guys from 35 to 50 years old still can play pretty good tennis. And once these matches were over, there's only one court used, stadium court, and we're playing on clay courts right behind. We had hundreds of people come out. We're screaming, we're yelling, and we're making it really fun for the audience. So, I'm throwing my racket everywhere to get the crowd to come watch and say, come on, let's go, join. So that was the highlight for me. I mean, I didn't really watch a ton of the matches while I was there because I was so consumed with our event that, like I said, is on the ground. It's a very rare situation where an event like this can actually happen at a 250 or higher, just because we're close with, like I said, Ivan and Adam. But the Delray Beach Open is a wonderful event. It's right on Atlantic Avenue. For those who have never been to Delray Beach, Atlantic Avenue has probably 100 bars and restaurants within walking distance from the Open. The great food inside the building, great atmosphere for all walks of life, kids, adults, and seniors. They do a great job at the DBO. Basically, you know how you go to these events and you got to travel everywhere to find your matches. Well, at the Delray Beach Open, the first 2 days, they're only using a few side courts, but once you get to basically the quarterfinals and beyond in singles and doubles, it's one stadium court, really easy to navigate to. The weather was incredible. It was 80 during the day, probably 65 at night. That's Fahrenheit. And we had a blast. It was great. I'll take the one takeaway that I saw in person was Mannarino versus Wolf. It was a horrible match. I mean, Wolf looked horrible out there. But Mannarino, I'm sitting 4 rows behind, the baseline, basically when I'm on Mannarino's side, and obviously Wolf would come over as well. But Mannarino does not hit the ball with any power. And this guy has no weapons. I could not believe. First time I've ever seen Mannarino live. But he makes his opponents play bad. He can make you look ugly, and he made Wolf look ugly on that night, Thursday night. That was the biggest surprise. And the big one was his string weight. He strings his rackets at 19 pounds. Okay? I mean, so you're basically using that frame once every few games, and you're switching it out because it's going to once you play at that level 4 or 5 games, you throw the racket, forget it, it's over. You need a new racket, you need new strings. So Mannarino is a fascinating guy to watch. I mean, nothing impressed me about Mannarino except making his opponent look ugly. Shapo, again, you talk about a guy that cannot disappoint me more than anyone on this planet. The Shapo performance, that second and third set against Mo, not the second set, he won the set, first and third set, just disgraceful. I mean, this guy is a mental midget. And 2 years ago, I kept saying Shapo would be better than FAA. Shapo would be better than FAA. Boy, was I wrong. It's not the physicality of Shapo. It's up here. There's nothing between the 2 ears out there. All he does is bitch and complain to his coaching staff on the side when he misses a ball. Hey, Dennis, what are they going to do? And it's not their fault that you continue to loot balls as they come to you and you shank them out. This guy's got to fix his problems because he's so talented. You see my tweet up there. Anyways, yeah, I can rant about Shapo all day. I wanted a Shapo Fritz semifinal. and I
Yeah,
didn't get it.
I can understand
Very-
that. Damien, I will come to you in a second on some of the things that Brian said and also that tournament in general. But I'm also wondering, Brian, if you were unable to attend some of the matches, partly because of your enjoyment, let's say, that you were having and your enthusiasm for perhaps that street nearby, which also included, by the way, you being a judge at the
Yes.
tacos, and I want to emphasize tequila VIP event. So I'm wondering if that was also a distraction for you, perhaps. And I'm just wondering if you took your eye off the ball as well.
Yeah, I did. I shanked a lot of balls because I was a judge at tacos and tequila. That was a really amazing event. Some of the best best Mexican restaurants in Delray Beach participated in this VIP event and tequila. So little tipsy by the end of the night Thursday, but that definitely inhibited me from watching all of the Fritz match. Fritz versus who is Fritz playing in the quarterfinals that night? I can't even remember. It's kind of
Manarino?
Manarino.
no. Manarino was the semifinals. Manarino was playing Wolf that night.
No. So Manarino was the quarters, and
Okay,
Fritz
round
played
of 16. You're right,
McDonald's
David.
in the.
Who was the
So
round of
round of
16?
16, Gomez.
It was
Emilio
Gomez. That's right, Gomez. That was a good match. That was what 6-4, 6-5, maybe.
4-3.
4-3.
But
Wow.
he was down 1-3 in the second, I believe, and won
That's
the
right.
next
A lot of
games.
tequila. I had too much. Had some margaritas, tequila that night. It was really fun. So it was round of 16. Manarino Wolf round of 16, and then Fritz and Andres Gomez's son. It was a good event. I can't tell you how much fun I had. It was awesome.
Damien, what are your thoughts on that tournament? I guess it was Taylor Fritz's to win from the beginning, and he did win it. Is that fair? I mean, maybe you might think Chapeau's got a chance, etc., etc.
Honestly, I found it very dull, especially compared with like Buenos Aires, which was basically airing at the same time. Well, I wanted to say at the same time for me, but it was airing at the same time for everybody, I suppose. And some very exciting players like Chapo, like Wolf lost early. Manarino did to Wolf exactly what I thought he would do to him in Auckland or wherever they played at the beginning of the year. But there, actually, Wolf played a super smart match. Here, he did not. Shapovalov, I don't know. I mean, both losses, Dallas, Delray, they look pretty bad. They're definitely like don't have much to do with the potential that we know this guy could have. But no, the opponents were also pretty rough. Of course, there was also that stinker from Tommy Paul in the quarterfinals, which was absolutely wild. That a player who looks so complete usually and just generally doesn't seem like someone who has many poor days at the office does something like that. But well, he did. And from there, it kind of looked like Fritz's tournament to lose. Who did he lose to in Dallas? Remind me, because I'm now of course, Ibing Wu in the semis. So Wu was nowhere to be found in Delray Beach. Of course, he withdrew after 2 very tough weeks. And the Pekotic story, honestly, it didn't. It's great, of course, but did it excite me that much? As a guy who watched, of course, not live, but watched him in Orlando last year or Cleveland just before this event. I never really felt like he was that much of an unknown presence, as clearly some people sort of tried to make it out to be. He by some people who just wanted to make the story even better. He was like described as a guy who basically hasn't touched a racket in 5 years, which of course is not true at all, but still a good story, and something that we will remember from Delray Beach, because otherwise it was a pretty uninspiring event. And I'm sure, being live at it, I would totally have a different opinion, because live tennis is just so good that basically whatever you're going to watch, you're going to love it for sure. But yeah, compared to Buenos Aires, Rotterdam, I was not excited about Delray Beach this year at all.
Yeah, I think Rotterdam, although I'm Buenos Aires, I mean, maybe Cam Norrie's run was kind of interesting. But let's get to Buenos Aires now. Of course, Carlos Alcaraz winning the tournament. But from after he had a sort of sticky first match in Argentina, Damien, was it ever really in doubt that he was going to win the tournament?
I don't think I saw much of that second round against Jere, but from that point onwards, he was just really sort of unbeatable. Of course, there was one blip in the second set against Norrie when he was 5-3 or whatever up and served for
Yeah.
it, then had to win it 7-5. But yeah, very refreshing to see that he was able to just clean it up like this. It certainly felt like both Lajovic, Zapata Miralles, they weren't maybe exactly peaking, but they were playing some very good tennis in the semis and the quarters, and they just couldn't handle, Carlos. They just couldn't handle his, especially the racket head speed he gets on the forehand. They just weren't able to deal with it, and this is the sort of Carlos Alcaraz that we were watching, last year, for a long, long time. Basically, maybe until the U.S. Open. After the U.S. Open, there wasn't that much to like, of course, but the courts didn't suit him that much. There were some injury issues, but yeah, to see him come back like that, he has a wonderful draw in Rio until the semis. Basically, I think maybe only Musetti can touch him in that event as a whole. Musetti could play him in the semis, but he even has a pretty tough first round against Jari. Alcaraz has a few rounds that basically he should speed run through them. So it shouldn't really matter that he played in Buenos Aires. Even though he's gonna sometimes going for back-to-back titles can be tough physically, but yeah, I think with the easier start that he gets in Rio, it's not gonna be a problem. And yeah, he just looks like a world beater again, and hopefully that's gonna continue because he's definitely still a very fresh addition to the top of the game, even though of course we've been watching him for like 3 years or something like that, but he still feels fresh compared to all the top guns that have been there for a much longer time.
Yeah, I also thought it was quite interesting and quite amusing how Cam Norrie decided to call Carlos Alcaraz Charlie. He was referring to him as Charlie in his speech afterwards. Big thanks to Charlie. It was a great match. You were the better player today, Charlie. I assume he means Carlos when he's referencing Charlie, but who knows, given
A lot of
London.
people call him like that.
Do they? I've not heard it
Yeah,
before.
it's not. Yeah, it's not his invention. No.
Oh, okay. I'd not heard anyone. I know that Carlos Moya is sometimes referred to as Charlie, but I hadn't heard Carlitos or Carlos referred to as that. But fair enough. Anyway, I still thought it was funny. Listen, a great job there. But as Ghosty's suggesting, he might not find things too difficult in Rio either. I think Cam Norrie is the number 2 seed there in Rio as well. So they may well be on a collision course once again. Be interesting to see. I mean, I guess that's a good run for Norrie in terms of the fact that clay's not maybe his best surface. Brian, did you have any thoughts on this clay court South American swing, if you like, ahead of the Sunshine Double?
You mentioned Cam Norrie, and that was a shocking. Shocking is a little too extreme, but this is not his surface. But I'm impressed that he reached the finals. I have to say, I was really impressed with Charlie's footwork. After being injured, Alcaraz looked really, really good out there. I didn't watch a lot of Alcaraz. Obviously, I didn't have access to Tennis Channel when I was gone Thursday through Saturday. I watched him play Wednesday night. Watched a little bit of the Norrie match as well. Carlos looks good. I'm happy he's back. I'm happy that he's ready to go in full swing. Hitting the ball so heavy. Oh my gosh! Like some of the balls that the average person, if they're able to get it back onto the court, are going to hit maybe inside the service line. This guy is hitting the ball inches from the baseline. So really, really eager to see what happens to him as he navigates through the spring in Miami and in Indian Wells to see if he can repeat his Miami championship, which will be really exciting to see in a couple weeks.
Indeed. Final port of call is basically Iga Swaitek and her run.
Oh, can I also say a few
Damian.
words on Buenos Aires as well?
Yeah, of course.
Because
Damian,
I think outside of these, although I guess I'll touch on Norrie as well. He definitely was more like struggling to find the way to win these matches than actually playing his best. But yeah, as you said, I think especially the South American clay conditions aren't perfect for him. We've just seen him in Davis Cup against Colombia, which was totally different, of course, because it was 2,500 meters altitude. But yeah, there he also Evans lost to Mejia, but it wasn't like Norrie had very clean wins against Nicolas Barrientos and Nicolas Mejia. So definitely not his favorite conditions. He was almost out to Diaz Acosta, who just couldn't convert his best win, the best win of his career in the second round. But he certainly did, like, what he does best, staying ultra solid, being very good mentally as well. And I think as the week went on, Norrie got really much better used to the courts and what he had to play in the South American swing, which he never really took part in before. I think only in 2019 he showed up for 2 events and didn't have much impact. And for me, huge stories were also the semifinal rounds of Zapata Miralles and Varias, which were both. These were their first on the main tour. For Zapata Miralles, it's especially important to either produce in this part of the season or then the European clay courts, because he's defending forefront points at Roland Garros plus qualifying. So it's like 205 points to defend at the French. With the fact that since Roland Garros last year, he has not been doing that well, there was certainly some danger that he would simply fall out of the top 100 after Paris. It's still there, but to me, he definitely has a game of a middle of the road main tour player, which he has not been showing though. And always, you can see that he really understands what the golden swing means with all the dramatic matches that he played this week, and was definitely super fun. Even though some of them were extremely messy, like the one against Martinez, I think had 18 breaks in 25 games. Which it is what it is. It is what this part of the season, what we sort of love it for. Even though usually I'm definitely more of a hardcore guy, and Varias especially. I mean, it's so obvious that he has the talent to get rounds like this on a regular basis. He beat Bautista Agut in Gstaad last year, which was his first top 20 win. Here he got another over Musetti. I think combined with this, with the whole run that he had, I think this still was the best week of his career. Just couldn't really do it against Norrie, but the ball striking talent that he has is just insane as well. And hopefully for both of these guys, it's going to be not the last ATP semifinal. Although, of course, Alcaraz would have beaten. Well, he beat Zapata Miralles, and I'm pretty sure he would have handled Varias as well. But that's sort of what I meant by by the fact that Buenos Aires was so much more exciting to me, because especially on Friday, I remember looking at the schedules, and like in Delray, there was no match that I wanted to follow, like none. And in Buenos Aires, I just put on the stream from the center court and just sat through the whole 8 hours or however long it took.
Okay, let's switch to the women's side of the game. By the way, some compliments for Damian and your Twitter account.
Oh, wow.
And also a mention of Fognini even. I don't know why I'm getting Bogdan and
Mario
Fognini
would be very angry at you because you now said Fognini, which he very specifically told us that it pisses him off.
Yeah. Don't get me started on tennis players' pronunciations. I'm at the other end of the scale to Gil Gross, who said he's very passionate about it. I think it's one of the least important things around, but I'll address that in a podcast another day. So for now on, I'll be saying Damian and Bruin, my two guests today, and I'll be mispronouncing their names intentionally for as long as I can remember. Listen, Brian, let's switch over to the women's side of things. There's actually some matches going on right now, but let's look back rather than at the present or forward. And let's have a quick look, actually. So I want to bring up the actual rankings as well, by the way, as I just sort of move around this website very quickly. I don't think there's been any great movers and shakers on the ATP side. Djokovic now is equal Steffi Graf in terms of 377 weeks at number one, and he's about to obviously go past that figure in the next 7 days, because I don't think Alcaraz can catch up with him.
They're going to be even on points if Alcaraz wins Rio, but because Djokovic has more points from Slams, Masters 1000 events, and the ATP finals, which is the first tiebreaker, Djokovic would still stay number one.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Thanks for that, Damien. That's a good one. But no other great movers. I'm guessing, did Fritz not move up a place or so as a result of his win?
I mean, he very well could move to number 5 even if Rublev doesn't defend. Basically, if Rublev... No, actually, even if Rublev wins Doha. So, Fritz will be number 5 next week.
Fritz is going to 5.
Yeah. Fritz is going to be number 5 the next Monday,
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. On the women's side, of course, Iga has such a gulf over her nearest rivals. That's not under threat anytime soon. And of course, Iga winning the tournament last week in Doha. So much tennis going on, Brian. And I know, of course, you were in Delray Beach, up to your neck in tequila and tacos, as well as a bit of tennis playing. So I'm sure it's quite difficult for you to keep across all of it. But any thoughts on Iga's win, where she barely dropped a game, never mind a set?
That is a woman that was on a mission. My goodness, what she did to my girlfriend, Danny Collins, I could not believe it. That was a beatdown of epic proportion. I didn't see that coming. I mean, Danny's had some tough draws this winter. Man, her Australian Open draw was vicious, and the last two events have been really tough. Didn't she lose to Ostapenko the tournament before? I mean, there hasn't been any easy, pass for Danny Collins, and boy, Iga, man, she looked good. I mean, I think she was not happy with that AO result, right? I mean, she came for blood and she got what she needed. Anything else that stood out? Pegula, I'll tell you what a win over Ostapenko. I mean, she was dead. She was 5 feet under against Ostapenko, and Ostapenko just, fell apart. Another mental case right there, Ostapenko. But I think Ostapenko is playing really well so far. I think that was a major missed opportunity for her to emerge and get past Jessie. But really happy to see Jessie continue on in the top three. Sabalenka is the one that I'm most curious about. Can Sabalenka come back after that AO title and do some damage? I hope so. She's probably my favorite player on the tour. Sakkari did what she had to do. She finally held serve. She beat players ranked below her which is shocking for Sakkari to do that, it seems like. But boy, what a terrible performance. It wasn't just a beatdown by Pegula. Do I have that right if I remember the score?
No, it went third set.
It did? Okay. So again, I was out of town. I thought I saw the score line like 2-2, so I stand corrected.
She was down a set and a break, I think, or certainly set, and it was tight in the second set. But she managed to win that. But yeah, I mean, Sakkari semifinals and all that.
I like her though. Like, I want to see her win. I think she's a very likable person. I think Breaking Point really gave us a glimpse of how good of a person her and Ons Jabeur are. And she's just frustrating as a fan, or if you bet on her, she just somehow will fall apart in pivotal moments. And I'd like to see her get back to the Indian Wells finals. That would be cool.
Brian, the temptation as a very infrequent gambler I used to gamble a bit more in my early 20s when I was a taxi driver. It used to be a sort of a thing to do, if you like. You jump out the taxi and you'd go into the bookmakers and it'd be just full of other taxi drivers. Anyway, and and I just remember one particular sort of train was that let's say you're on the Sakkari train and you bet on her frequently. I mean, there is a point when it's like, maybe I should just cash out on this, or not cash out, whatever the opposite of cashing out is. Just like, I can't keep it. But your fear is that you stop backing her, and that's when she goes and makes the breakthrough.
Yeah, you just have to pick your spots with Sakkari and all these players, frustrating players. I think on the men's side, for me, it's always been RBA. Like, this guy can go out there and beat the world's elite with no problems, and then just get destroyed by somebody that's ranked 60 in the world. And sometimes we'll go out and play Medvedev and lose 0-1. You're just like, who is this guy? I can't figure out RBA. Beats up Murray pretty good in the Australian Open. Obviously, Murray was dead tired from his match prior. Again, was it Kokkinakis? Yeah, Kokkinakis, Murray followed that match. So anyway, long story short, from the gambling perspective, just be smart, play responsible, pick your spots, bet live. Big proponent of betting live. I mean, you probably didn't have that back, John, when you were betting.
No, not 20 years ago, no.
No, and you can really read the room on women's tennis. These women fall apart very quickly. It's pretty easy to tell when things are going down, the chips are falling apart. And but here's the deal. You have to have the time, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have the ability to watch the match and be in front of a screen and watch where the market's going, right? And that's That's not easy for most people. Luckily for me, I work from home a ton, so I can have my computer screen going, a TV going, and say, okay, hey, look, there's Zachary just completely falling apart against someone. Let's go the other way, or vice versa. So yeah, no, it's tough to bet on tennis, but you got to know it and you got to follow market well.
Iga Swiatek, I think, over the last 2.5 years since she won the French Open, has been a very interesting scenario where every time there have been doubts, every time it's like, she had that great run to winning the French Open, but even throughout that run, this is 2020 I'm talking about, it was like, well, when's she going to play so-and-so? When's she going to dismiss that problem? She goes and wins that tournament at a canter. And it's like, oh, she may be a problem for other players on clay, but not sure if she's going to transfer that to the hard courts. Well, this time last year, she dispelled that concern with consummate ease. Then we have the period probably from the US Open final until about now. And I know it was a smaller tournament last week, but she beat some very significant players, and she beat them with consummate ease. I think it was 5 games, Damian, that she dropped all the way through. And it does seem as though every time there's questions, not only does she answer them, there was even, for example, last week, I think she served unbelievably, which is probably one of the areas of the game that people have pointed at, that maybe the second serve in particular needs to be improved upon. What are your thoughts on Iga? Am I getting too carried away by what was just a small tournament?
First serve should be improved upon, and maybe it was. That's gonna be
That's
like
right.
the big thing that we're gonna be watching going forward. Especially against Collins, she hit some incredible first serves, like the 187, I think, out wide, 184 down the tee aces. Both placement and the speed were just something that we haven't seen from her in a while, maybe never actually. Still, she spent 3 hours on the courts in Doha, so who knows if that's actually going to continue. I think it's actually 3 hours on the dot, because she
Wow.
was there for like 53 minutes, 56 minutes, and then 1 hour and 9 or something like that.
She had a walkover
Um,
as well, yeah.
yeah, I mean, she showed last year, of course, that on slow hard courts she can easily translate it. These Doha courts are perfect for her. I mean, this is where her run started last year. They respond to topspin incredibly well, even discounting that great first serve that she showed. They also, the kick is so dangerous on them. Even the sliders, she goes for a lot. This is basically amazing for her. Even the wind. Heavy topspin players tend to do so well in the wind, like Nadal, Gasquet, who famously said that he's still a top 20 player in the wind, or something like that. And it's not it's not by accident. In terms of the opponents which you mentioned, I think both Pegula and Kudermetova fall into that category of sort of benefiting from how unstable the WTA tour is right now. They have produced a lot of good, consistent results, but they are rarely big title threats. Of course, Pegula had Guadalajara at the end of last year. Kudermetova, I think, lost 3 finals last year. Generally, when they play a peaking opponent, when they play an elite opponent, they fold. It wasn't the case, of course, with Pegula in Sydney when she played Swiatek. But these courts, the conditions in Sydney, in Doha, they're like on the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to hard courts. You really cannot really go much more different than that. The way Pegula is a very flat hitter. The way in Sydney it was much better for her in that regard. Here, Swiatek just controls the rallies, and I think over the past let's say maybe half a year or so, especially since that Garcia win, which I will keep mentioning it because I think really a lot of players learned from Garcia how to play Swiatek when she beat her in Warsaw. And they sort of learned that you gotta attack the serve and you gotta just keep her under constant pressure, especially to the forehand side, of course, which with the grip is really tough for Iga to absorb pace on faster courts. And here on courts like that, it's so tough to do. And also, she didn't really face opponents other than Collins, because Collins definitely has the skill set that is required. But yeah, she was just, in the first set, I think she committed 13 unforced errors in 28 points. 46, that's 46%. That's just insane. And yeah, she just couldn't find her game at all. But Kudermetova, Pegula, they don't really have the skill set to try to beat Iga. It's going to be tougher in Dubai for sure. Just like last year, she won Doha and she lost to Ostapenko. one of these players who are very tough for Swiatek on the tour, because they have the exact skill set required if they're hitting well. Ostapenko did the same to Goff, of course, at the Australian Open just now. I'm not saying she will lose in Dubai, but I think it's going to be much tougher. And this also kind of, I think we've talked about it a few times, that more smaller events, not even smaller, but in terms of like Masters 1000 events, WTA 500 events, there are a lot more courts right now on tour that are better for Swiatek than they are at the slams. Like at least 2, maybe even 3 of the slams right now aren't great for her, because I will keep saying that the US Open, it wasn't a fluke. But it was just surviving until she got to play, in the final and the semis against some very familiar foes, and sort of just ground that win. It doesn't have to be repeatable. Wimbledon, Australian Open, we still haven't seen it, and it's not an accident. But there are a lot of slow hard courts at the WTA 1000 level, and Indian Wells, Miami. And of course, the clay season, I am fully expecting her to, I don't know if win 30 matches in a row, but dominate. Dubai is going to be a bit of a test for sure, because the bounce, especially the height of the bounce in Doha, is just so high that it basically it probably plays more like clay than any other hard court on the WTA tour, at least. But amazing display of strength, of course. Even though, as I mentioned, like the opponents she faced, especially Pegula and Kudermetova, they tend to fold against top opposition. But Swiatek just fully reminded us what she can do in these sort of conditions to 99% of the tour. And no reason, even if she loses early in Dubai, I think she actually has a pretty tricky draw, but it's tougher than it was here probably. But even if she loses early there, we'll see what happens. But even if she loses, I don't think it's going to be much. It's not going to leave that much of an impact going forward to the Sunshine Double, to the clay season. Of course, last year these tournaments were swapped, so Dubai was earlier than Doha. That's why she had that 37 match win streak, even though in Dubai she lost to Ostapenko in the second round or quarters, whatever.
Got it. Yeah, of course, Dubai being a 1,000 event, so all the big ones are there. Sabalenka, of course, included in that now brackets without a doubt after her Australian Open win. Any final thoughts on the women's game right now, Brian, or even this tournament that's about to take or currently taking place in Dubai because it got underway this morning?
Well, unlike Damian, I don't have that quick knowledge. I haven't looked at the draw, so I don't know what to expect out there.
I can tell you that Danielle Collins is in probably one of the more dramatic first-round matches. She's up against Fruhvirtova. Rybakina as well is playing Andreescu in another potential popcorn match in the first round.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the draw, but I do have some bets in. I don't know who's all I just know the first round. That's all I know. So I don't know the path for these ladies. I listen, it's women's tennis, right? And when the wind picks up and the elements change, I think anyone can win this tournament. Iga's got to be the favorite to win it. Probably don't love Sabalenka in these situations. I'm going to be curious to see if it's super windy, how does that serve hold up, right? I was impressed what we saw down under, right? The conditions were probably more favorable for her there than it will be, especially in Indian Wells, where it can get super windy. The Miami Open can get windy, but not as bad as it used to be when it was hosted in Key Biscayne. People don't realize that the Miami Open is not close to the beach. This is in West Miami, in near Miramar, Florida, which is still about a 20 to 30 minute journey to get to the coast. So we'll see. I'll be watching. I think I have a parlay of Ostapenko, Rybakina to start this day off. Hopefully, they both can emerge, and paying a pretty big price to have them both married together. So that's the start of the day for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, any final thoughts on anything we've missed out on, Damian, over the last 7 days? Is there a player from outside the top 100, apart from Liam Brody, who's been impressing you?
Oh Jesus! Actually, last week was a little weird on the Challenger Tour. Like in Sherbrooke, there were some super slow courts, and it really impacted the results. No, I don't know Not necessarily. There's one of the big stories of the week. This upcoming one, although it could end in just on Tuesday, is going to be the ATP debut of the 19-year-old Abdallah Shailbai, who's already the best ever tennis player from Jordan. He just made the finals in Manama. Got his first top 100 win over Jason Kubler. Then lost to Kokinakis.
He lost to Kokinakis. Is that the
Yeah, lost to Kokinakis in the final, and he's going to play. He's going to play Sun Wook-won in the opening round in Doha. Very tough draw, but almost everyone would have been. I don't think he's the favorite to win it. I think his game is still kind of vulnerable to getting overpowered. He might not be like the sort of talent that jumps at you from the screen instantly when you see him, like I don't know, an Alcaraz or Rune did. But he definitely has a very complete lefty game. Can actually hit with power, even though there are you could still work on it. You can work on the serve for sure. Since he was 14, he trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy. That's where he got his high school education, and then he went to the States to play for the University of Florida. He was actually best friends with Ben Shelton, and they both played for the Gators. But Shelby, after just 1 year, well, like Shelton, right? Or Shelton was 2 years. Anyway, Shelby decided to quit, skip his next years after just one season for the Gators, and he's just fully on the Pro Tour now. And of course, in the Arab world, sort of, even though he's not from Qatar, he got a wild card to the Doha event. He also had a wild card in Bahrain to the Challenger in Manama, and hopefully just gives a good account of himself. He was definitely kind of tired at the end of that Manama week, so that's gonna be maybe one of the things to watch out for. Even though it likely ends on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever he gets to play his first round match.
Just one final thing on that, Damian, and then we will close this up because it'll be an hour basically. Is I did see some interesting comments on perhaps in terms of ranking points and perhaps even the development of your game. There was the discussion appeared again yesterday on tennis Twitter regarding the notion of playing challenger events, where we've seen, like I say, that final you mentioned with Kokinakis yesterday, and then I think the player that they highlighted was, I'm not sure if it was Goffin or Dimanor, someone of that ilk anyway. And it's like, they're not picking up points. And I don't know if you saw this debate on Twitter, or if I'm making any sense, Damien.
I don't know.
It was basically just the notion of maybe go and play some challenges, get some wins under your belt, get to a final. I think they highlighted the number of points gained by certain players. It might have been Kokinakis who had gained a load of points, whereas X player was just, not making any progress in the rankings, or even just not getting any points. What are your thoughts on that argument or that debate?
I think it really depends on the player. I think for some, after you get to the main tour, it's kind of easy to stay there if you have like a very good ceiling in individual matches, because I don't know, you make 3-4 quarterfinals and maybe you're already gonna stay. And on the Challenger Tour, you kind of have to produce consistent results. Goffin maybe was mentioned because he won that Challenger in Ottignies-Louvain-la-Neuve a month ago. By the way, I have to say thank you again to Nurlan, because he's like giving me some amazing compliments along with that previous one. But otherwise, I got sidetracked now. But what I'm saying, 125 points. I also had some discussion on their My Tweet yesterday from people. I didn't really participate in it, about the fact that maybe challengers shouldn't give as many points. That maybe 125 points is too much. I don't know if I agree with this, but the certainly the jump between the Challenger 125 level and the ATP 250 is not that huge. It's certainly not as huge as it is from a 25k on the ITF Tour to a Challenger. And I think for a lot of, there are some players ranked in the 70-80 range who have been using this very smartly, who have been sort of mixing between the two tours. I think maybe someone like Roberto Carbaez Baena probably played like 10 challengers last year. And, he is benefiting from this. He actually is doing probably better, especially if you want to focus on clay courts, right? Which, he is a good example for that as well. Even though he has a ranking to play main tour events, he plays a lot of challengers, and that's how he sticks around that level. So I think if you're a smart scheduler, and not many players on the tour are actually, you can really use it to your benefit. And by the way, there are going to be 5 Challenger 175 events, so 175 points for a win. But it should be, these are in the second weeks of Masters 1000 events, the second week of Indian Wells, and then second week of Madrid and Rome. But basically, usually in order to get into a challenger, you cannot be ranked in the top 50. There's only an option in the biggest ones for a couple of wildcards pre-approved by the ATP, which is something what David Goffin needed to do because he was actually precisely number 50 in Otinier-Louvain-la-Neuve. But in these 175s, which the first one is going to be Phoenix in the second week of Indian Wells, and then Madrid and Rome aren't, the locations aren't disclosed yet. The players ranked between 11 and 50 are going to be able to enter like normal. So presumably we're going to see some huge names on the Challenger Tour as early as Phoenix, so the second week of Indian Wells. Do pros hire a scheduler, or does that fall to the coach? I doubt anyone has a scheduler. I'm sure a lot of players have managers who buy tickets for them, but I'm pretty sure they're like hired guns who just do what they are told to. It would be very weird if someone actually had a scheduler. Although a lot of players really schedule themselves in an idiotic fashion, and that's always been kind of surprising to me.
I mean, even just outside the top 100, Damian, you get players that lose passports and can't go to events as a result because at the last minute they're just like the rest of us and they're scrambling around their apartment looking for their passport, or they don't turn up, or it doesn't happen a lot, but occasionally these things do happen. So I think certainly outside the top 200, but even outside the top 100, I'm aware of some stories of where this occurs. I do want to just very quickly get Brian's thoughts because we've got 2 more minutes, basically. Brian, any thoughts on some upcoming tournaments? You mentioned 1 or 2 tips, for example, for the Dubai event that we've got currently just getting underway on the women's side. But are there any other thoughts that you're like, listen, I'm very interested, even if it's as far away as Indian Wells or Miami? You're like, I think Taylor Fritz is nailed on to retain his crown, or blah, blah, blah. Anything in the next few weeks that you've got? Acapulco as well.
Well, from an American standpoint, Taylor Fritz, I'm really happy for him and Mike. Mike's his coach, Mike Russell. These tournaments like Delray Beach, sometimes you come in, you work on what you need to work on, and you have fun, and you move on, even if you lose second or third round. But he took care of business. He won some matches in 3 sets, and he's going to be ranked 5 in the world next week, which is an incredible achievement. So now, there's a major target on Fritz's back in Miami and in California, and I want to see if he is capable of coming close to defend those points in that title out west. It's going to be tough. Obviously, there will be no Djokovic, which will help his cause. Tommy Paul is going to be interesting. He was sick leading up to the Delray Beach Open. For those that don't know, probably nobody really knows that, but he probably shouldn't have played, and he found a way to beat Kudla, and obviously couldn't get through his next match. So Tommy was not in a great spot at Delray. So I'm really eager to see how he does. Really excited for Shelton more than probably anybody. I want to see if Shelton can find himself back in another massive event in the quarterfinals. His DBO exit last week was pretty disappointing, right? I think we all wanted to see Shelton, emerge to at least the quarters or semifinals. He was seeded there. I think he was seeded 8. So I think he may have been on Tommy's side of the draw and just couldn't get there. So, this is, to me, my favorite tennis time of the year is now. It's just nonstop great tournaments from February through late March to early April, and then of course Paris coming up a little bit after that. But I just love the combination of clay and hard here at the end of the winter.
Cool. Thank you very much to both of you for joining us today. Everyone else, by the way, who's also joined, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're watching this retrospectively, get in the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. But I just want to say a big thank you to you both, and enjoy the rest of your days and your week as well.
Hey, thank you, John. Hey, Damian's a tough act to follow. I mean,
I
is
know.
there a guy that knows more about professional tennis than Damian? I
I mean,
mean,
I
John
have my
McEnroe.
blind
John
spots. I
McEnroe.
have my blind spots for sure. But I
Damian.
do take pride in being probably the best when it comes to, ATP Challenger guys.
Yeah, Damian, I need to know when's the challenger on October 10th. Tell me right now who do you think is going to play in it? Where is it located? What are they selling? Are they selling? What kind of drinks
Actually,
are they offering? I need to know everything right now. October
actually,
10th.
the calendar for the
He knows.
challengers is not it's not fixed yet.
Okay.
It usually
That's
comes
2
out.
months.
Right now we have the calendar only until the end of April.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, never mind. I tried to trick you there, but you tricked me right back. No, he's amazing. It's guys like Rain Man here. I don't know if you've seen the movie Rain Man.
Yeah.
Genius.
please don't. I know, but I know
Genius.
the movie, but of
You know the
course,
movie.
thank you.
Well,
But that's
I'm gonna
not
take him to
really
a casino
yeah,
to play
never mind.
blackjack. He probably knows every card that's underneath the table.
Indeed. Listen, big thanks to you both. I'll be speaking to you both very soon. Ciao to Jane. Ciao both as hello and goodbye. And I'm going to leave you all with this little promo video, a trailer to an interview I did with Sabalenka and Ons Jabeur's data guy. I'll leave you with that trailer. And to the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your days. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.